In an era of unprecedented censorship, it seems like to me that mass society is beginning to react to this draconian authoritarianism coming from not only our governments here in the West, but also through a very tightly controlled media consensus, which ironically is just creating more backlash. And you see it across the film industry and video games. These producers are so fixated on politicizing and propagandizing every single one of their new releases, and as the box office statistics seem to indicate, this doesn't make for great entertainment. Really, it is one of the reasons why we have been languishing in such a long period of stagnation across various realms of modern entertainment. There's an increased hostility characteristic to a lot of the culture promoted at the moment, especially by Hollywood and especially in the Western video game industry. It's just so in your face, you get like a classic European folklore fairy tale. In the case of one of Disney's most recognizable and valuable IPs, of course, The Little Mermaid. And there's these Hollywood executives that are gleefully rubbing the fact that they've race-swapped Ariel as some kind of weird psychotic flex in the faces of people who literally just want to pay to see a family film after a long work week, to take the whole family to see Little Mermaid, and your daughter goes, "Daddy, why is Ariel black? Why does Ariel have dreadlocks? Why does Sebastian hate white people, Daddy? Why is the funny seagull Scuttle voiced by what sounds like a chain-smoking pan-Chinese prostitute? I have so many questions, Daddy." And you turn around and you're like, "You know what, honey? I don't know why. I can't logically answer these questions for myself anymore because it doesn't make any sense." I think there's a lot of guys like this in the normie sphere. When the lights go out at night and they're lying in bed, they go, "Why does it have to be this way? Why is Snow White now Snow Brown, played by a salty chocolate Latina," right? I have a lot of questions. Why is Aragorn black in the new Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings card collection? Is this really about equality? If neoliberalism was supposed to be the Popperian end of history, then is this wokeism the end of culture? Is Black Ariel truly the summit of human artistic expression? And of course, the mainstream answer to these questions is, fuck you. That's basically it. It's, oh, you're asking why Ariel's black? Well, it's because fuck white people. It's like that's the perspective that we're getting straight from the horse's mouth at the moment. You're like, oh, well, okay, well, maybe I won't go see a movie this weekend. I might play the new Baldur's Gate. This is like a hypothetical scenario. I'm not playing the new Baldur's Gate, but say I was, right? Larian Studios just announced that they've actually collected data on the character creation statistics. And there is upsetting levels of whiteness happening. Within the community, within the player base, there's been too many generic, straight white characters being LARPed as in our RPG, and it's just not good enough. We have to do better, because frankly, it's disgusting. Ugh, gamers are so fucking predictable, aren't they? We've given you all these different fantasy races and all these IRL brown ethnicities for you to autoerotically inhabit, but you gamer scum, what do? You create a classic RPG fantasy straight male guy with a lock of blonde hair and a giant fucking sword. You can't do that anymore, okay? That's racist to do that. It's like, yikes. I mean, isn't this a little bit of like a kind of non-issue, really? Why are we talking about this when it comes to an RPG? Can't we just all LARP as whoever we want? What do I usually make? I make like a kind of white Nordic-looking warrior because that's just the way I roll. I didn't realize it was illegal or distasteful for me to create a character that I want to create in an RPG, as if the point of an RPG is not to express one's individuality. And, by the way, I'm not even Nordic, but the point is, it's a role-playing game, as is my prerogative. I will LARP as whatever kind of white sub-ethnicity I feel like in a fucking video game, if the RP calls for it. And I don't care if anyone has a problem with that, even though the autism of modern gaming dictates this fugue state where if you're not white, then you must agitate for racial representation in every single video game. But me, it would be weird and racist of me to create a classic RPG white male warrior. Like, that entire archetype apparently is coded fascism. Really, they should be choosing to create like a black character at every opportunity. And they should think about that racial inequality as they play the game, although there really is no true atonement for the sins of slavery and of white supremacism. As of course we all understand, but as an aside, you see a lot of these YouTubers that they'll create like a black character despite being some white skinny nerd. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. I mean, by all means, I'll like roll up to Windhelm, with my red guard, and I'll be like, hey yo, I love Ulfric. That would actually be pretty based, Talos is king, right? Like, yeah, I can get on board with that playthrough, but on YouTube and Twitch, you'll get these white nerds that feel compelled as like an act of anti-racism, they're proving they're an ally by creating a black RPG character, and they're just like, I always make a black guy, right? I mean, it's like, okay, there's a whiff of cuckoldry about it, to be frank. And it's just evidence, really, of how negative the self-perception of Caucasians is within contemporary society. It's like a spiritual cuckoldry, born, I guess, from being raised in a system of covert Loxism. But really, only so much of this stuff can be tolerated as an apolitical normie before going, you know what, maybe I'm not going to shell out for your early access gay cucked version of a classic Western RPG that was probably way better. I'm going to go back and play Baldur's Gate 1, and you communists who claim to be game developers, you can suck my dick, my actual male anatomical penis, as opposed to the furry dog dildos you probably have adorned across your office, because again, in this quasi-religious anti-white narrative of victimhood and guilt, they now want revenge. We live in the culture of leftoid revenge, where entertainment and art, you're not supposed to produce these things to delight and add value to your customers' lives. No. All art in 2023 is part of like a woke jihad against normal people. And by normal people, I mean the average person, the per capita, the mean, in what has to be peak clown absurdity, to cater to their tastes and to not insult them and berate them and participate in this performative ethno-sadomasochism will have you banished from these industries outright. This is the reality of pop culture under a system dominated by an elite that hates its subjects, and it's this very hatred that's kind of permeated everything, even down to the bread and circuses of our modern civilization. It's pointless to argue with these people as well, because you're arguing with narcissists who operate within this framework of postmodern philosophy where nothing means anything to them, everything is liquid and formless. Their very identity itself is in flux. This is the internal world of like a psychopath or a narcissist. They are able to twist their souls into such ugly forms in their pursuit of power. It's something that they're very good at. And the entire woke word salad ideology is a really good smokescreen. They can just kind of hide behind this state and corporate sponsored value system that really acts as more of a weapon. It's like the ultimate tool of critical theory, and they're everywhere. They're in every tier and every layer of every institution. And we're all supposed to be okay with this. It's like, excuse me, Mr. Producer of Entertainment, rubbing your hands together as you take my hard-earned money and use it to fund subversive propaganda and political action that will disenfranchise my children and ruin and rob them of a real future in their own fucking societies. Because I'm not way A-okay with this, then what? I'm supposed to be treated like a fucking terrorist, is that right? The average normie Karen is now a terrorist, right? And why are they a terrorist? Because they're questioning the punishment, I mean, who are we to question the methods of treatment prescribed to us by these coastal intellectual elites who, like benevolent doctors, will treat us through these Freudian Marcusian tools of psychoanalysis for the pathology of the Western authoritarian personality, the inherent kernel of fascism that lives within every single white child that needs to be eradicated one way or another. And that really is like the message coming from academia. It's the consensus, it's everywhere. It's in our entertainment. It's in our children's entertainment. You pick a random university-educated woman out of a crowd and you ask her, so what do you think of white people? She'll be like, oh yeah, they're fucking evil. We should deconstruct their entire culture and civilization and artificially hold them down and crush them and make sure their path to success are sabotaged, their potential for a future completely ruined and decimated, their ability and motivation to have children and procreate undermined at every turn through entertainment, through academia, through media, to the point where homosexuality and transgenderism is promoted because, of course, one inherent characteristic of these movements is that they do not create white children. In fact, the pride flag itself seems to just be a coalition of groups that do not produce white children, and in fact, this is all just about white children. White children are evil. Okay, bye-bye. You get these women who, unironically with a straight face, and a lot of them being white themselves, will signal boost what is essentially a genocidal ideology. But because these values come from an authority, be it the state, be it academia, well, they go unquestioned, especially by women. The modern religion of the West and the woke zeitgeist itself seems to be at war with the very idea that European children should be allowed to thrive and to have futures. I find that probably the most abhorrent aspect of wokeism. And I like to use wokeism as kind of an umbrella term to cover a lot of modern leftist ideology, including neo-Marxism, i.e. third-wave feminism, intersectionalism. But please don't get me wrong. Don't think that I'm not going any further down that rabbit hole, because of course, these intellectual movements came from people. And not just any people, but people with a unique agenda, where it's this idea that you can't overthrow and destroy the fruit of Western civilization outright and through warfare. So you do it through bio-Leninism, I guess. You brainwash the women of the West, and you force mass immigration under the guise of anti-racism. This is the project. If anybody asks that question, well, why is everything so fake and gay right now? Why are all movies woke garbage? Why? And it's like, the real answer, if you want to know the real answer, if you really want to know, there's a war happening against European children. They're targeting our children directly. That's the most fucked up part of this entire system that we're living in at the moment. It's just so evil. And the truth is, this is the perspective shared among a lot of our entertainment professionals. Top down, bottom up, an evil elite in league with an evil lumpen proletariat, in alliance with the goal to crush the ethnic Western European culture and family unit, a 20th century project come to fruition. As I've said before, the political will of multiple generations of Western men neutered in this absurd era where people are losing literally everything just for standing up and going, excuse me, but I didn't do anything wrong. My children didn't do anything wrong. Why are you persecuting me? Why do you hate me so much? These are the people whose heads are now on the chopping block, condemned to be ostracized, to lose friends, to lose family, in some cases to lose their own lives, to despair. So much wasted human potential, only for society to look the other way as if it's by design. Empowerment for me and not for thee. This is the dark side of the rainbow. When you see the pride flags and all of the fake corporate-sponsored jovial celebrating and smiling drag queens and confetti and all that, the most sick part of this entire affair is that it's all being done as part of an expression of ancient ethnic hatred against innocent European children. And I know there's going to be people that don't want to hear that, they won't agree with it, there's going to be excuses, you're going to attack my character ad hom. But I'm telling you, this is how it is. And I guess for Hollywood right now, we're in like the twilight years of the blockbuster, really, where it could be game over. And frankly, it's been a long time coming, and, press S to spit on the grave of these Hollywood communist pedophiles who have been shitting their subversive degeneracy into the minds of children across the world, perpetuating this kind of sicko, anti-Western, anti-white worldview. That's what they've been peddling for a long time, and it's just been so counterintuitive, really, when it comes to entertainment. It's that these movies, these video games, this culture is absolute cancer. And I think it's that very hostility that's fueling a new countercultural backlash, not unlike the atmosphere in 2016, as a matter of fact, but darker. There's some red pills that have been rising to the surface of the public consciousness in recent years that back in 2016 would have been considered the absolute katana's edge of online political discourse. So I guess that's indicative of this shift in the Overton window, even though The powers that be are spending more money than ever, they're wasting more energy than ever, playing cultural whack-a-mole as they suppress dissident figures and speech online. It's that they're losing control of a lot of narratives, and it's happening in real time. In 2023, everybody knows on some level how this game is played and what's going on. Everybody feels that bubbling anarcho-tyrannical energy, this soft gaslit atmosphere of cruelty being stoked at every turn. But going beyond the abstract and actually getting specific, well, that is gatekept, especially in mainstream conservatism. But the point is, whether you're on the left or the right, the tide has reached a point where these conversations are going to happen in private if they don't happen online. They're going to happen at the pub. They're going to happen between close friends, trusted friends. Although those bonds of fraternity in the West have been severely undermined, they still exist, in the spirit of classic gaming. And of you guys listening to me spurg out on this channel, it's proof of the direction that culture is heading subtly, because of course, with the mainstream so controlled for such a long period of time without a real counterculture and without the ability to really talk about the edgy truths of life and of society, well, nature abhors a vacuum. And with these new dissident figures within Gen Z who are finding platforms and finding audiences despite being banned on most, if not all, of the mainstream state-approved social media spaces, one can only hotly anticipate a cultural pendulum swinging right with such force it's like Thor's hammer itself, utterly annihilating the postmodern society with the force of 1,000 atomic bombs.